Hello and welcome to The Top Story, the podcast with the headlines of the day from our correspondents around the world. I'm Qizhi. Coming up in this edition, Japan's Liberal Democratic Party and its ruling coalition partner have lost their lower house majority for the first time in 15 years. Israel says its airstrikes hit Iran's defenses and missile production hard, while Iran vows a strong response to Israeli attacks. And Finnish President Alexander Stubb visits China this week as the two countries mark 74 years of diplomatic ties. We begin in Asia. Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party and its partner Komeito have lost their lower house majority for the first time in 15 years. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba admitted the result put him in a difficult situation.
Based on what I see now, it's quite a tough situation. Midway through the campaign, I felt this would be really difficult. There were so many politicians that didn't vote for me in the LDP's leadership election. I became the prime minister with a surprise come-from-behind victory at the very end. And I'm in the party where I cannot ignore those who don't agree with what I say. In trying to manage these dynamics, I feel I've lost my sense of self.
The Constitutional Democratic Party of Japan gained 148 seats, up from 98. Party leader Yoshihiko Noda said the result was within their expectations.
I think we can say we achieved our goal, since we aim for the Liberal Democratic Party to lose the majority. And that's a great achievement. However, the total numbers are not out yet, and there might be some additional votes. Once the final results are out, I'd like to call an executive committee in the morning and decide on what to do next.
The last time the LDP coalition lost a majority was in 2009. The results of Sunday's election raises uncertainty over the makeup of the next government and the outlook for the world's fourth largest economy. Rebecca Bundon reports from Tokyo.
This was really a political gamble for the new Prime Minister, Shigeru Ishiba, and it didn't pay off in the end because the LDP, which has been the dominant party in Japan for some 7 decades and has enjoyed a majority in parliament, has actually ended up losing its majority according to those results. Even with the support of the coalition partner, its longtime coalition partner, the Komeito party, those two parties together still don't have enough seats to cross the 233 majority mark. They only got 215 seats. The main opposition party, that's the CDPJ, they actually managed to gain some 50 seats. So that was a significant win in some ways for the party, but that's still well short of the majority, and the LDP still remained the most popular party in terms of votes. To some extent, it was expected that the LDP was going to lose seats. Now, that's for a number of reasons. The party has been losing some of its popular appeal, and that's because of a series of scandals, including a political fundraising scandal. That's really shaken trust in the party among a number of citizens in Japan. And then there are also issues that the economy is facing, including high inflation. And some analysts say that, in a sense, this is a good thing for Japanese democracy because the LDP has been the dominant party for so long. Often it's been a one-horse race, but now we are seeing the opposition parties getting a bit of a look in, and they're sort of getting this glimpse of the potential for power. So that gives voters other choices.
That was Rebecca Bundon on a possible shift in Japan's government following the defeat of the ruling party in a parliamentary election. In the Middle East, Israel says its airstrikes hit Iran's defenses missile production hard, a claim that Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said should not be downplayed nor exaggerated. Khamenei also said Israel has underestimated the Iranian people's power, capability, innovation and determination. Ihsan Kivani reports from Tehran.
It could be inferred from his comments that under the current circumstances, the country's interests matter the most, and a kind of flexibility can be shown by Iran. Of course, Iran's supreme leader is an intelligent person, and his remarks can be regarded as two-edged. He emphasized that Iran's power must be shown to Israel. However, he said the Iranian authorities are in charge of deciding the quality of Iran's show of power. Just like other countries, there are naturally hardliner and conservative politicians and media outlets who urge the government to go for the third missile attack against Israel by Iran this year. The foreign minister Arakchi said a few hours after the Saturday Israeli attack that the whole world had come to know Iran's missile power and deterrence capacity. In his latest remark on Sunday, Arakchi said Iran's right to respond is reserved and the country will respond to Israel at the right time. He once again emphasized that Iran is not seeking war, but at the same time, Iran never escapes a war.
Iran said its air defenses successfully countered the attacks and some locations suffered limited damage. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the weekend attack was precise and powerful and achieved its objectives. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has vowed to respond. The Israeli airstrikes were in retaliation to the Iranian barrage of missiles at the beginning of the month. In China, Finnish President Alexander Stubb is in the country for a state visit this week. His arrival on Monday coincides with the 74th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties between the two countries. Yu Yan has more on the agenda and expectations from China.
The Chinese Foreign Ministry said that Finland was actually among the first Western countries to recognize the People's Republic of China, and adding that relations between the two sides are actually experiencing sound developments in recent years. And the ministry also noted that China is willing to maintain high-level exchanges with Finland and continue our traditional friendship and strengthen mutually beneficial cooperation in areas including trade, investments, green transformation, and other fields. Well, actually, China has been Finland's largest trading partner in Asia for many years, and Finland is also China's third largest Nordic trading partner. And analysts say Stubb's visit will be an important opportunity for both sides to work on broader relations, especially given the current challenges confronting China-EU ties, which see trade tensions over electric vehicle imports area.
That was Yu Yan on the Finnish president's visit to China. Turning to South America, Colombia has inaugurated its first ever grain zone for the COP16 Biodiversity Conference, aimed at enhancing inclusion at the United Nations Summit. The general public can attend panels, workshops, and artistic performances in the grain zone. Meanwhile, in a blue zone, where experts and officials are holding talks, an art installation is sending a message that it's time to do something about the threats against the world's biodiversity. Michelle Begu has more.
In the world of biodiversity, what happens when an ecosystem is taken out?
As humans are destroying ecosystems piece by piece, each piece coming up reduces the resilience of the Earth, and at some point, the climate and the biology will collapse. So the call to action is, before that happens, let's stabilize the tower, rebuild it with resilience by putting blocks back in.
Biodiversity Jenga is the name of the art installation located at the heart of the UN Biodiversity Conference headquarters in Cali, Colombia. The 6.4-meter-high monument hopes to serve as a striking metaphor for the urgent need to protect at least 30% of land and water ecosystems by 2030. Benjamin Van Wang, the artist and environmental activist, created this piece for COP16. It features 33 stacked blocks that represent 12 distinct ecosystems from across Colombia.
We have a very fragmented group of people with lots of different interests. Having something like this, to me, is an opportunity to create one common symbol that everyone can agree upon. While we might not agree upon what needs to be done or how quickly it needs to be done or how it should be done, what we can agree upon is where we are today.
Biodiversity Jenga was sponsored by Sea Trees, a California nonprofit group that supports organizations around the world that are helping restore coastal ecosystems by bringing funding through projects like Blue Carbon.
At COP16, we've now launched the world's first marine biodiversity credit. It's called the Sea Trees Biodiversity Block. And so people can go into our website, seatrees.org, and buy biodiversity blocks that support a mangrove restoration project in Kenya.
Von Wong says while the art was his vision, he brought in Colombians to make it a reality. The piece was built in Colombia by a local architect, and more than 200 students handcrafted 150 animal sculptures that populate these ecosystems. The installation will remain at Cali Botanical Garden after the summit, serving as a permanent reminder of the world's responsibility to carry out COP16's slogan, to live in peace with nature.
That was Michelle Begu in Cali, Colombia. Finally, in Africa, South Sudan's government says it is helping refugees and its nationals previously living in Sudan with community integration. The United Nations says South Sudan hosts refugees and asylum seekers mainly from Sudan and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Patrick Oyet reports from Juba.
Akwai Deng is South Sudanese but was born and raised in Sudan. The mother of two fled Sudan when violence broke out in Khartoum last year. She now runs a car wash business in South Sudan's capital, Juba.
This is the first time in my life to come to Juba. I have found things here totally different from what I was used to in Sudan. No one is there to help you. No one is there to give you anything. If you want to get bread for your children, you must work for it. That's why I started this business.
The United Nations says more than 500,000 South Sudanese who previously lived in Sudan are now in South Sudan. South Sudan hosts some 330,000 refugees and asylum seekers. However, aid agencies say refugees are facing hunger in South Sudan as humanitarian funding dries up, food rations are squeezed, and the cost of food soars.
We are requesting for organization and all other organizations who can help us to help us.
Recent funding shortfall means refugees seeking safety in South Sudan only receive half of what is considered a full food ration.
South Sudan has more than 2 million internally displaced persons due to conflict, insecurity, and the impact of climate change. The displaced people also depend on food aid.
Across the border in Sudan, the fighting which broke out in April last year has fueled one of the world's most severe humanitarian crises and shows no signs of abating. South Sudan's government says it is doing all it can to assist those fleeing the violence.
They are included because they enter into the normal schools. They're not segregated against. They use the same health service, which is not the case in many other countries. Despite the fact that we have challenges, actually, we have done better than most countries who actually have resources. So we have been integrating them. We have been, they're allowed to travel and move freely in the country and choose where to go and live.
Sudanese like Akwai Deng, their hope is that South Sudan's government will bring a lasting peace in the country as they settle down.
That was Patrick Oyet on a government program in South Sudan to help refugees. In Nigeria, at least 7 people have died after a building collapsed in a suburb of the capital, Abuja. The incident trapped about 40 people under the rubble. Kelechi Yemi-Cullen has more from Abuja.
The incident occurred Saturday evening on the outskirts of Abuja, now a demolition site. Eyewitnesses say it took several hours for help to come through for those caught up in the tragedy. About 40 people were trapped under this rubble. Dozens were rescued, but several others lost their lives. The wounded sustained various degrees of injuries and have been taken to hospital for treatment. Authorities have been systematically demolishing buildings here, not because of structural defects, but because they don't fit the city's master plan. The real reason? This area is earmarked for an access road. But what's striking is that these demolition sites have become a gold mine for scavengers. They swarm in, salvaging valuable materials from the rubble and making a profit from the destruction. Nigeria has witnessed several building collapses in recent years that claimed lives and left many injured or homeless. This crisis has drawn attention to the widespread problem of standard construction practices, corruption and regulatory failures, among others. The Nigerian government, through the Ministry of Works and Housing, has pledged to implement stricter regulations and improve oversight of the construction sector to avoid similar tragedies.
That was Kelechi Emekalam reporting from Nigeria. Now, recapping the headlines, Japan's Liberal Democratic Party and its ruling coalition partner have lost their lower house majority for the first time in 15 years. Israel says its airstrikes hit Iran's defenses and missile production hard, while Iran has vowed a strong response. And Finnish President Alexander Stubb visits China this week as the two countries mark 74 years of diplomatic ties. And that's it for this edition of The Top Story, the podcast that brings you world headlines every weekday. For more news in politics, business, sports and culture, you can subscribe to The Beijing Hour, a one-hour podcast news and magazine program. We welcome and appreciate all ratings and reviews. I'm Qi Zhi. Thank you for listening.